What have you learned about the technologies from the process of constructing this product? The camera that we used for our film opening was the Canon 100D, and despite us managing to film and produce a successful piece, there was room for improvement when it comes to the use of our hardware. One area in which we could have improved our cinematography would be with the focus of the camera, for as a group we struggled to get the grips with the focus of the camera, and that fact was evident in our final piece with some of our shots being out of focus. However, this can be said to be our own fault, for we did not have the actors in shot when we put the camera in place. Another area in which we could have improved upon was the stability of the camera, and once again this proved evident in our final piece, albeit marginalised by the stabilisation feature on Final Cut Pro. This particular feature enabled me to make some of our shots look more free-flowing and smooth, allowing for a product of better quality. For instance, prior to our car scene, we had a shot that panned up of the car that was really unstable, and the stabilisation feature on Final Cut Pro allowed me to make it look much more smooth and free-flowing. Another piece of hardware that we used during production was an iPhone 6 and its inbuilt voice recorder during the car scene, and did so initially as a precaution, for we did not know how good the audio quality of the camera was, so instead we recorded our audio, our dialogue, on an iPhone recorder just so we had a spare piece of audio if the camera audio was not good enough. Despite us not using any of the audio we recorded during production, I did have our driver record a piece of dialogue in post-production just to fill in some of the gaps on our timeline where we deemed it necessary. In terms of software, in post-production I used Final Cut Pro and YouTube to edit and download relevant clips for our production. With the use of Final Cut Pro, I was able to use the blade feature to cut up some scenes and fill it in with different shots of the same actions. In particular, our car scene consisted of a master shot that had to be broken up to avoid having the scene drag on for too long by having close-ups of and cutaways to our protagonist. And Final Cut Pro enabled me to edit some of the clips to make it seem more continual and more free-flowing. The software also enabled me to add tints or filters to some of our shots to help change the mood according to our characters and their personalities. I did this by applying a cold blue tint to all of our shots and adjusting them to my liking and rid of the fact that they have just been recorded on a camera, and to make our product look more professional. The presentation of our protagonist is a testament to this, as he is a cool, calm and collected person, and the blue tint allowed me to further emphasize this.
How was your flight?
Documents. Give.
How was your flight?
Documents. Give.
Final Cut Pro also enabled me to make our locations seem as if they were at the airport when in truth they were not. More specifically, our toilet scene and car scene, for they were shot in the sixth form toilets of Lambton School and Waterman's car park. During post-production, I downloaded the sound effect of an airport tannoy off of YouTube and synced it on our timeline according to our visuals when our protagonist turns around, to create the fact that he was actually at the airport.
Attention please, this is the final call for Korean Air Flight 7111.
Furthermore, I was able to download the sound effect of an airplane landing and implement it onto our timeline, synchronizing it with our visuals. More specifically, during our car scene, when the driver proceeds to engage in a conversation with our protagonist, a plane is heard overhead, giving them the topic of conversation that was needed.
Imagine me flying a plane.
During the production of our car scene, there was no diegetic sound playing, making it lack a sense of realism. So to rectify this, in post-production, I downloaded a Russian radio track off of YouTube and made it sound as if the characters were really listening to it in the car. I did this by adding the track to our timeline and applying the car radio mask that was on Final Cut Pro and synced it with our visuals, making it seem that the Russian radio track was being listened to in the car and not pure raw audio. Another thing that I was able to synchronize with our visuals was the adjustment of volume that our driver made during the car scene. I did this by using the blade feature to cut the audio into, making the second half of the track louder and then fading it in, giving it the effect that the driver had just adjusted the volume in correlation to our visuals, which showed the driver playing around with the dashboard. Lastly, for our opening credits, I used a typewriter font that allowed for each letter to appear on the screen one by one, allowing for the audience to be able to read our credits with very little trouble. In addition to this, to add to the typewriter effect, I downloaded a piece of audio that was essentially somebody using a typewriter, and once I'd done this, I added it to our timeline, cut up the track according to where and when our credits would appear, and synchronized them. In summary, the production of this project has taught me successfully how to import video and audio files onto Final Cut Pro, use the blade feature to cut up and fill in different shots of the same action, use dialogue that was recorded in post-production and added to the timeline, and add a filter to our shots to make it look less raw and more professional. What kind of media institutions might distribute your media product and why? The media institutions that we feel will be well suited to distributing our media products are Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, MGM, and Lionsgate. The two institutions have in the past produced similar films to our own in terms of genre. For instance, MGM has been involved in the production of a number of James Bond films, such as Skyfall in 2012 and Spectre in 2015. And Lionsgate were involved in the production of the anti-establishment action films Olympus Has Fallen and London Has Fallen, in correlation to our film, which involves a Russian spy trying to take down the British government. We feel that these Hollywood institutions are best suited to producing our film, for we are aiming for a mass audience, and these institutions can help us aim towards a mass audience. Who would be the target audience for your media product? According to our pre-production survey, around 65% of the voters were male and 90% were aged between the years 13 and 18. This indicates to us that we ought to aim our film at a predominantly male teenage audience. Furthermore, around 75% of voters prefer to see a male protagonist as opposed to a female one, allowing us to provide our mainly male audience with a protagonist that they may be able to relate to more. The age range of our target audience also played a part in us choosing our institutions, as most teenagers consume films that are produced by big Hollywood institutions such as MGM and Lionsgate. The participants also voted for our protagonist to be both logical and intellectual. This would indicate to us that our target audience is slightly more mature than we initially assumed, hence why our protagonist is a sophisticated and complex character to understand. Similar films to our own, such as Skyfall and London Has Fallen, produced by MGM and Lionsgate respectively, were highly appreciated by people of a similar age group to our target audience, and both proved to be huge successes at the box office, with Skyfall raking in around $1 billion and London Has Fallen around $200 million at the worldwide box office. We're looking for similar success with our film, hence why we're appealing to a mass audience consisting of mainly male and teenage people.